Okay, today in chapter 2.5 we're going to estimate with two-digit divisors. And estimating is it's kind of fun. You don't have to find the exact answer, but you get to find a close answer in your head. First of all, we need to understand a couple of things. 45 divided by 5 is 9. We're just looking at patterns here real quick. If we add a 0 to both sides, say 450 divided by 50, and if you punch that in on your calculator you'll find that that's also 9. And remember, if we multiply backwards, 9 times 50 would equal 450, because 9 times 5 is 45 plus that 0. So remember, division and multiplication, we're going to keep saying it, are just backwards operations with each other. So if we add another 0, 4,500 divided by 500, we still get 9. One thing to think about is if you have zeros on both sides of a division problem, you can cross them out and it gets you back down to your 5 into 45, or 45 divided by 5. If you have a 0 on both sides, you can. If you don't, if you have something like 450 divided by 50 by 5, you can't cross out a 0 because there's not a 0 on both sides. If you have 450 divided by 500, this one's going to be a little bit tough because 500 is bigger than 450, but you could cross out 1 0 on each side, and you would then be saying, how many times can you divide 45 by 50? And it's going to be a little less than once. Alright, so for estimating we're going to use what's called compatible numbers, and a lot of times we're going to use two pair of them. They might want you to find a high and a low estimate, and that's what we're going to look at today. If compatible numbers is something that you're going to have to maybe work on. You might not have seen them before. Compatible numbers are numbers that work together. So probably a large portion of what we have to talk about is getting you used to compatible numbers. For instance, if I have 65 divided by 8, that doesn't work very well because 8 doesn't go into 65. We'd have a remainder. But when we're estimating, we don't want a remainder. So we're going to think, what number does 8 work with? 8 times 8 is 64. So 64 divided by 8 would be a way to do an estimate. Okay, 64 divided by 8 is 8, and that's about, it's not equal to, it's about equal to 8. 65 divided by 8 is about 8. It's 8 with a remainder of 1. This is called a compatible number. If we just rounded, we'd have to say 70 divided by 10, and that gives us a number that's actually not as close to the real answer. If we rounded 65 up to 70 and 8 up to 10, we'd get an answer, and it would be an okay answer, but a compatible number is a better answer. Usually. Sometimes they're the same. What if we try that with a little bit bigger, like 1301 divided by 6? Okay, well, how many times does 6 go into 13? It doesn't, but it goes into 12 pretty well. So that would be, 6 goes into 12 2 times. 2 times 6 is 12. I have to remember to keep those two zeros so that 200 times 6 would be 1200. That kind of makes sense. That's one estimate. It would be another estimate would be that was rounding down. If we were to get a higher estimate, I suppose it depends. There's a couple of ways to do it. You might have to go all the way up to the next thing that 6 goes into, which would be 1800. And 6 goes into 18 3 times. So you'd have 200 for a low estimate, and this is actually closer to what it really is. 300 would be your high estimate. Try to do that so that it looks a little bit better. Your high estimate. Okay, see how that works? If we try a couple that they give us in the book, and they give it to us the other direction. They give it to us both ways. This is like 88 into 6,080. Now you could, you kind of have to change both of these possibly. 88 is close to 90. And what does 90 go into? 90 doesn't go into 60. It goes into, 9 goes into 63 or 54. So your low estimate would be 54. And your high estimate would be 90 into 63. Now neither of these look exactly like this, but they're close. And you're going to get estimates, and you might get one that's a little different than the book answer, but if you're using your head and you're thinking through, 9 goes into 54 6 times. 6 times 9 is 54, and then you just have the zeros. It adds up to, oh, I added one too many zeros. So again, I want to undo that white. There we go. Again, you have to think. I always have to go through and I have to multiply in my head. 6 times 9 is 54, and if I add both of those zeros, I get an answer. Look at that. There are times when you have to look carefully at your work. It might be that I'm having one of those days. 6 times 9 is 54, and then you have a 0 here and a 0 here, and those add up to your 2 zeros here, and that equals the 5,400 that we started with, which is what we're hoping to do. Okay, over here, in the same way, 9 goes into 63 7 times. 7 times 9 is 63. And then you have to add a 0 here. 7. That's what it is. Because of this 0, I shouldn't have written the 6 over the 54. Let me show you what I just did. And maybe we'll just leave it in this lesson because you could learn something. I did 6 times 9 is 54, but really what I have is not 6 times 9, I have 6 times 90, which would be 540. So I really should have started with the 6 here, not here. So if I did that again, and I think it would start making more sense to you if you see it the right way. 9 goes into 54 6 times, but you can't put it over here because it's not 9, it's 90. So you've got to bring it over here because 6 times 90 is 540. Then it's easy then you could just add your 0 to the end and you know you've got a right answer. I put it over here above the 4 and I tried to add 2 zeros at the beginning, and then I noticed that that didn't make a lot of sense. It's important for you to pay attention, check your work. You can see that I made 2 or 3 mistakes right here, but I think that by going through and figuring out what I did wrong helps us to get better answers. Same thing over here, 90 into 6,300. Really, it's 9 into 63, but since it's 90 into 63, it's 90 into 630. And it's still 7. 9 times 7 is 63. 90 times 7 is 630. And so that we can tell that 90 times 70 is 63 plus our 2 zeros, and that works out as an answer. Check your work. Make sure everything is working. Alright. So you have to get a low estimate and a high estimate. And then sometimes it just says use compatible numbers to estimate the quotient. You can do whatever you want. For instance, they have 25 goes into $595. So they just throw a dollar sign in here. And that's fine. $595 works out just fine. And we just have to think, well, how many times does, we could go through and do long division, how many times does 25 go into 59? But it might be nice to notice that 25 goes into 50. I could have rounded this up to 3 and said, well, 3 goes into 60. So I could say 30 into 600. I could say 25 goes into 500 because 25 does go into 50. And that's closer to what I have here. Although really that's 600. And if we did this one, 25 goes into 50 twice. 2 times 25 is 50. Add our 0. So 20 is the quotient. 20 times 25. 2 times 25 is 50. Add the 0, it's 500. What if I wanted to do something a little more accurate? Sometimes kids like to be accurate. Could I do 25 into 600? Well, 25 doesn't go into 60, and that's where it comes out being a problem. If I were to write this, 25 does go into 600 all right. 25 cents does. 25 would go into 600 sometime, but it doesn't go into 60. And when we're trying to estimate, that gives us a trouble. That gives us a problem. We can't just put an exact answer down here. We'd have to start with the 2. 2 times 25 is 50. We'd be left with 10. Bring down our 0, which is 100, and 2 goes into 100. 25 goes into 100 4 times. 4 quarters is a dollar. 25 goes into 100 4 times. So 25 goes into 624 times. But here we didn't really do any estimation. We really did some actual math, even though we changed our numbers from original numbers. We need to be able to just do an estimate where we have straight to an answer. Straight to an answer. We don't want to have to actually do a long division problem, even though it's simpler maybe than the first one, and we don't have a remainder, we don't have any decimals, it comes out even, but we're looking for estimates, and that's part of the thing you have to remember. So again, you can't just pick any number, you have to pick one that works. 68 goes into 710. Here I would just change this to 70 because 68 is close to 70, and then what does 7 go into? 7 goes into 70. Now it looks like I rounded, but I didn't. If I'd rounded, I'd say, well, 68 rounds up to 70 and 710 rounds down to 700. Really, I just thought that I needed to use the 7 because 68 is close to 70, and then I looked for a number that worked. I got the same answer as if I'd rounded, but compatible numbers are a little different, and you need to keep that in mind. So 70 goes into 700 10 times. 1 times 70 is 70, add the 0, so it's equal to 10. That's how that works. Have fun with the assignment. It should be pretty easy if you're willing to get estimates instead of exact answers. Have a nice day.